like an interesting phenomenon too with like high net worth individuals that are like kind of forced to become investors just to maintain their purchasing power, right? They either outsource that, they try to do it themselves. It's almost a shock to them when you go to them and you're like, you just have to buy it and you put it in cold storage and that's it. And they're like, that is impossible. And they kind of go through this like mental process of like, that's insane. And then they start to listen to you because it's like, wait, the kid in the t-shirt and the hoodie and like he's giving me better advice than this guy. Like, what is going on here?
Yeah.
So, but Bitcoin does that.
Starts with what, even before all of that, let's question, why does the doctor, right? Why does the lawyer have to think about buying stocks, about buying bonds, right? About thinking about, I'll tell you, like my father is a doctor and he needs to invest. He's like, oh, so where do I put the money now, right? And it stresses him out. Like every month he calls me, it's like, listen, I have these bonds that are coming due, where do I put the money? How do I invest, right? And this happens all the time. The reason why it happens is because, again, the money is broken, right? It's a current, you're swimming against the current. And if you just sit there, and people very quickly realize this, if they leave the capital sitting in their checking account, right? 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, your purchasing power already went down by almost half. Right? And when I worked with high net worth individuals, right? The number one concern, and these are people that are worth like $50 million, $100 million, number one concern on their minds was running out of money, which is, I remember looking at it like, there's absolutely no way this guy's going to run out of money, but they knew something I didn't know, right? They're like, oh, I'm getting older and, my healthcare costs are just exploding up, right? And they just seen what has happened and they're extrapolating to the future and say, well, what happens in a world that, inflation really picks up? And I can't just sit here and think that, I have $100 million, maybe is an exaggeration, but the guy that, used to have like $5 million, in 2008, it was considered like, oh, this guy doesn't need to, I remember like saying like $5 million, you don't need to work anymore in your life, like never, right? I mean, you can just go enjoy life, buy a boat, right? Go buy a nice house, and you can just enjoy life the rest of it. I mean, it's not that $5 million is little money, still a lot of money, right? But I can tell it's hard to retire with $5 million today, right? And it was even less than that, right? If you look in the 70s, there was this show called The $1 Million Man, right? That used to run in the US. And $1 million was like, oh, this guy, it's like a billionaire today. It's pretty much the same thing. It's like a billionaire today, right? Somebody that has so much money that doesn't even know where to put the money, right? And look at the number of millionaires that exist today in the US, right? It's ridiculous. And it's not because people are getting richer, it's because the money it's becoming worthless, right? And through this process, we saw, the monetization of assets that should have never been used.
The premium on real estate is bonkers. It's insane. Crazy. Doubling in like 1 or 2 years. It's insane. Yeah.
It's crazy. The secondary, and it's all, again, the government's fault, because in the US, you have all these benefits to buy real estate. You can deduct the interest that you get, right, from your taxes. So you are very incentivized to buy real estate, and people did. Like, people were rational in that decision. But what it ended up doing is now you have a new generation that's coming in to buy homes, and they can't afford homes, right? The homes became this Frankenstein of an asset that shouldn't be a savings account, and it became a savings account. It got morphed into something that it was never supposed to be that way. It's supposed to be a place where you live and you raise your kids and you have your family, right? And not a place where you put your money in. And that's what I was going to say. Like in Brazil, historically, that's where people put their money. Like,
Rafa, come here to Miami. They come here. They buy an apartment completely empty. Just leave it there. They'll pay the condo fee, and they're like, "I am good. I'm doing great." And then prices double. And then they see it. There's a huge Brazilian community here, so I know exactly what you're talking about.
And they're not being, irrational by doing that. First of all, an apartment in Miami, the Brazilian government, good luck going to take it over, right? It's going to be much harder. So just for them, crossing the potential capital controls already has a lot of value to it, right? But more important, they just look at the charts and like, yeah, Miami real estate went up, pretty much every year for the last 5-10 years, right? So as an investor, investment is the best investment that I can probably do. Now, there's a limit to how much monetization an asset like that can take, right? I think in real terms, not in nominal terms, maybe there's no limit because people keep printing money and then, of course, prices keep going up. But in real terms, there's a limit, right? I can guarantee you that prices of real estate in Miami priced in Bitcoin are not going to go up in the next 5-10 years. They're not, 5 years from now, we're going to look at prices of a home, a condo in Miami or New York City or whatever big town that you want to get, right? And price it today in Bitcoin, look at it again in 5 years, right? Very, very hard. I can't guarantee that. It's a guarantee because I'm exaggerating a little bit, but very, very hard for prices to be when they're priced in a hard asset that, has a hard cap. We're not going to be producing more. People can, governments can ask as much as they want. They can change the code as much as they want. They can try to do whatever they want. We're always going to have 21 million. That's it. It's a cap, right?
Yeah.
And people are going to realize that also. I think, and this is why it bothers me when people say that, there's a lot of volatility in Bitcoin. There's no volatility, man. Again, look at this. Like it's at the most stable monetary policy that you can find in the world today, right? None other governments are this stable. None of the other shitcoins are this stable, right? None of them have this track record. So it's simple. Don't complicate, right? As you said, stay humble, stack sats.